This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Sign up today and you'll also get access to Nebula, a streaming platform that's owned and operated by your favorite creators. Last year, Matt from the YouTube channel Nando v Movies organized a collaboration to celebrate the release of Avengers Endgame, where several different YouTubers discussed their favorite scene from any film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or scenes they just find particularly interesting. He wanted to do it again this year, but there's not really any big MCU movies coming out, and very few movies in general because of the pandemic. However, the latest X-Men movie, The New Mutants, is apparently supposed to be released in August after several delays and pushbacks, so Matt thought it would be a great time to get a bunch of creators to talk about X-Men. And awesomely, he asked me to be a part of it. And after watching this, you can check the playlist in the description to watch a bunch of other awesome YouTubers talking about X-Men movies. Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
So The New Mutants is the last X-Men movie made before Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox, meaning that any future X-Men stories will probably be retooled to fit inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So in many ways, it's the end of an era. There were definitely ups and downs throughout the X-Men franchise, but it's hard to imagine comic book movies making it this far without X-Men. In the past, superhero movies tended to be more cartoony and campy, if not outright stupid, which is kind of fair given the source material sometimes. But in my opinion, the first two X-Men movies proved that you could make a superhero movie with deep stories and interesting themes, like an actually good movie. And that's why I'm going to talk about the third one. In reality, there are a lot of great moments from much better movies in the X-Men franchise, but I wanted to pick something a little bit unexpected. X-Men: The Last Stand, also known sometimes as X3, is pretty much a mess of a movie. It lacks the cohesiveness and story depth of its predecessors, and most people I know would not describe it as good. Even so, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. The way I see it, this movie was supposed to be the big finale of the original X-Men trilogy. Its purpose was just to be flashy and loaded with fan service, which it certainly is. Now, there is kind of too much going on with this movie, and to be fair, this was before studios knew that people would happily sit through a 3-hour superhero movie. But the performances are great. The blend of practical effects and CGI is pretty impressive, mostly. And as a lifelong X-Men fan, half the fun of this movie is trying to spot all of the references to and cameos from characters in the comics, which this movie is full of. The movie does have some emotional plot points, like the Phoenix subplot should have been the main/only plot in the film because it's kind of the only interesting thing going on plot-wise. But for the most part, X3 is just an absurd light show, and nothing demonstrates this more than the final battle of the film, which is hilarious and ridiculous, and I love it. So in the first two movies, Magneto is portrayed as basically a terrorist who has legitimate grievances but ultimately misguided actions. But by X3, he has undergone a transformation into a full-blown totalitarian cult leader conqueror hybrid who has essentially declared war on humans. If you haven't seen the movie or don't remember, the basic plot is some scientists found a kid named Jimmy whose mutant ability is that any mutant who gets near him has their mutant powers temporarily deactivated. After researching this kid, they create a drug that can permanently disable mutant powers. But they need the kid's DNA or something in order to make it. Like, they can't make it without him. They claim it's a voluntary process, but it becomes clear that the government plans to use it as a weapon against mutants. And Magneto's like, nah. So he builds an army of mutants and storms the facility intending to kill this kid. And maybe the most famous scene in the movie, he uses his magnetic powers to literally rip the Golden Gate Bridge from its supports and move it, allowing him and his army to approach the island facility, which is heavily guarded by soldiers in preparation for Magneto's attack. I was thinking of choosing that bridge scene for this video because it's probably the coolest part of the movie, if not a bit over the top. But there's not really a whole lot to say about it. It's like, yeah, he moved the bridge with his mind. It was awesome. The end. So the final battle starts out pretty unremarkably. Soldiers armed with the anti-mutant weapons take out many of Magneto's front line, but eventually he gets the upper hand with the help of some of his more powerful allies. But then the X-Men finally show up and begin to even the odds. And this is when things start to get more interesting. Wolverine kicks a guy in the balls and it kills him, I guess. And by the way, whoever's idea it was to get Kelsey freaking Grammer to play Beast should win some kind of an award. Storm, played by Halle Berry, another great casting in my opinion, fights one of Magneto's lieutenants, Callisto, in a throwback to a classic X-Men story involving a conflict between those two characters. The choreography isn't great, but the fight ends with Storm absolutely roasting Callisto with her lightning powers. This movie was rated PG-13, and it's not like graphic or anything, but there are several pretty brutal deaths in this movie. Like this one, for example. Jeez. Then there's the segment where Kitty Pryde races the Juggernaut into the facility to prevent him from finding Jimmy. And in the process, we're reminded of one of the earliest YouTube memes.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Alright, so this is when shit starts getting wild. Magneto is apparently bored at this point, so he decides to start spicing things up. With the help of Pyro, he starts fucking launching flaming cars onto the battlefield. And not just a couple. He rains down like 24 of these bad boys. It is the most absurd possible way to attack people, and I love it. Later, Iceman and Pyro have a Dragon Ball Z style Kamehameha battle, and we finally get to see Bobby in his ice armor, even if the CGI looks kind of weird.
You never should have left.
But eventually the X-Men get the upper hand and defeat Magneto. However, there is still the matter of the Phoenix. I mentioned the Phoenix subplot, and for a very brief explanation, Jean Grey was once a powerful member of the X-Men, but by X3, her psyche has been mostly taken over by a malevolent persona with near limitless power known as the Phoenix. So when a group of soldiers attempt to attack her, she doesn't like that very much and begins to go on an absolute rampage. It reminds me a lot of the revenge scene in Carrie, but the power of the Phoenix is more than a little telekinesis. She's straight dusting people Thanos style, no gauntlet required. She disintegrates buildings and jets in the blink of an eye, and apparently when she's going full steam, gravity doesn't even work correctly. And this just looks amazing. We see Jean popping off in the more recent Dark Phoenix movie, but it all started here, and I think it looks better here. I'm sure a lot of this fire and other particles were added in post, but this is just an awesome shot. I really liked the portrayal of Phoenix in this movie. Like, I really felt like they successfully portrayed just how powerful and dangerous she really is. In X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, I feel like her level of power and control is kind of inconsistent. But in this movie, you know from the very beginning that she has become basically an untamable god. And ultimately, there's only one real way to deal with her. I really liked this movie the first time I saw it in theaters, mainly just because I am a lifelong X-Men fanboy, and this movie is full of fan service, which I thoroughly appreciated. But upon later viewings, I really began to notice all of its flaws, and it really should have been a better movie than it is. But I just watched it again in preparation for this video, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed the whole experience. You just have to go into it with the understanding that this movie is a over-the-top visual spectacle with great performances and not really a deep character-driven narrative. When you do that, the movie's fun as hell. But that's just me though. What do you think? Several of the creators who will be involved in this collaboration, including Nando V Movies and myself, can also be found on Nebula. Nebula is a new streaming platform completely owned and operated by a collaboration of many of your favorite educational YouTubers and video essayists like Tierzoo, Mike Boyd, and Lindsay Ellis. And there's no pre-roll ads or anything like that. In fact, part of the point of creating Nebula was to give creators the flexibility to make the kind of content they're really interested in without having to stress about going viral or getting demonetized. Nebula also has exclusive originals that you can't find anywhere else, like Tom Scott's psychological game show, Money. It's amazing. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's Tom Scott. You know it's good. So in order to hook you guys up with all of this great, unique content, we at Nebula have partnered up with today's sponsor, CuriosityStream. CuriosityStream is a subscription streaming service with thousands of documentaries and nonfiction titles, spanning subjects such as science, technology, history, pop culture, and much more. I recommend The Secret World of Lego, a short documentary revealing some never-before-seen insights about the culture surrounding the successful and very secretive toy brand. And if you sign up for CuriosityStream, you'll also get full access to Nebula, absolutely free. For a limited time, CuriosityStream, which was already pretty affordable, is offering 26% off of their annual plan, which comes out to less than $15 a year. Not month, year. Just go to curiositystream.com/T1J to check it out. By supporting CuriosityStream, you're not only supporting me, but an entire community of awesome, smart creators.